Hey guys, this episode of True Gambling Stories is brought to you by Masterclass.com. Masterclass offers online classes taught by the best in the world. And now there's a new way to up your game. Masterclass has just released a class from six-time World Series of Poker champ Daniel Negreanu. Whether you're getting serious about poker or simply want to become top dog at your weekly game, you don't want to miss the secrets Negreanu shares in this class. In over 7 hours of high-quality video lessons, Negreanu teaches tournament strategy, cash game strategy, advanced betting tactics, and theory. Gives you exclusive insights into the mental side of the game, including how to read players, identifying tells, and hiding tells. Covers bankroll management, off-felt training, life as a poker player, and a lot more. In addition to Daniel's class, you can choose from classes taught by over 35 other masters, including Gordon Ramsay on cooking, Gary Kasparov on chess, Malcolm Gladwell on writing. New classes are added often and across a wide range of topics such as sports, music, cooking, writing, film, and many more. Whether you're pursuing your passion or developing your career, you'll find a master class for you. True Gambling Stories listeners can unlock access to Daniel Negreanu's class, as well as every master class for a year. Now available at masterclass.com/PNN. You'll gain unlimited access to over 35 world-class masters, all for one surprisingly low annual price. That's masterclass.com/PNN for unlimited access to Masterclass. Masterclass.com/PNN. Hey guys, this is Sean Chafin, writer and host of True Gambling Stories. Welcome to our 8th episode. We really appreciate all you guys out there who download and listen each month. We wouldn't be here without you. We especially thank all you guys who share with friends and on social media. The podcast just continues to grow, and I really want to thank you guys for it. If you've missed any episodes, just visit pokernews.com and click on the podcast link at the top of the page. You can go back and check out all the older shows. Or go to your favorite podcast platform and please subscribe. If you like us, please leave a 5-star review or a nice comment. Those help us out so much. Also, if you're looking for more stories about poker and gambling, please buy my book, Raising the Stakes, available on Amazon. It has a ton of crazy gambling and poker stories. Check it out. This month, True Gambling Stories takes you to the Blackjack tables, the classic card game of 21. But this story has a twist. It's about a global corporation and how a weekend at the Blackjack tables in Las Vegas in the swinging 1970s kept the whole operation afloat. There's a bit of blackjack, big money, big business, and a little bit of the sights and sounds of old Las Vegas. So put in the earbuds, sit back, and relax. Ship It. How a weekend of Vegas blackjack saved FedEx. Most of us just take it for granted. You found that perfect item online. Maybe it's a book or a gift for a friend. Maybe you've got your eyes on a brand new pair of running shoes or that big screen TV you've been saving up for. It's just so routine for most of us now. From books to beer to baby clothes to bug zappers, everything now is just a mouse click away. You type in your address and you're giving some options on how to get it to your house. You decide to spring for the overnight shipping. Why not? It's just a few dollars more. And you've got that 5K run on Saturday. You really need those new running shoes. But easy or quick shipping hasn't always been convenient or even possible. But think about it for a second. All those packages all over the world. The logistics to get your new TV from hundreds of miles away, then loaded on a plane and shipped to your home the next day. It's amazing when you really think about it. After its founding in the early 1970s, Federal Express revolutionized global business. It was a simple but difficult concept, offering overnight shipping via aircraft to businesses and individuals throughout the country and later the world. No one really even knew if it was possible. You certainly couldn't go to the post office and buy a stamp to get your letter or package from LA to New York or Boston the next day. It just wasn't feasible. But back in the early 60s, Fred Smith believed it could be done. Born in 1944 in Mississippi, entrepreneurship ran in his family. Fred's father was the founder of Toddle House Restaurants, which were a kind of 24/7 diner that served a breakfast all day. They were similar to Waffle House. He was also founder of Smith Motor Coach Company, which was later bought out by Greyhound. However, Fred didn't really know his father much. He died when he was 4 years old, and Fred was raised by his mother and uncles in the Memphis area. Even from an early age, Fred was interested in aviation. As a teenager, he played football, but also found time to earn his recreational pilot's license. In 1962, he headed off to Yale. At the university, Fred became friends with both John Kerry and George W. Bush, but politics weren't in his future. He majored in economics, and he still loved to fly. In fact, it was an economics class that would set the course for his future and his company. What's really amazing is that it would be a trip to Las Vegas that kept Fred's vision alive. What happened next is a legend in the world of business and industry. You see, FedEx began as a class assignment. Fred was creative and bright. His interest in aviation and business would be perfect for him later in life. In 1965, while still at Yale, Fred wrote a term paper outlining his vision for a logistics system for time-sensitive shipments that would utilize airplanes. He believed the entire system of shipping needed to be redesigned and put less emphasis on passenger route cargo service and utilize its own planes as a way to ship faster. He believed the system could also make more use of modern technology. Roger Frock was on Smith's team in the early years of Federal Express, serving as the company's first general manager and chief operating officer. Frock passed away in 2016, but his book, Changing How the World Does Business, is a great first-hand account of the company's early days. It details how Fred overcame numerous obstacles that threatened the company's survival. Frock notes that in the 1960s, airlines were trying to figure out how to profit from their unused cargo compartments, but none of their schemes seemed to succeed. While that Yale economics class assignment was lost to time, it seems Fred had envisioned a completely different system for overnight shipping service that had never been considered or tried. The Academy of Achievement spoke with Fred in 2013 about that assignment.
I was a student at Yale and wrote a paper about the computerized society that was on the horizon. It was pretty clear then with IBM, installing the big computers around, that the world was going to change. And the paper was about how this was going to change a lot of things, and in particular it was going to change the way things had to be distributed and moved to support those automated devices. The solution was, in my mind, to have an integrated air and ground system, which had never been done, and to operate not on a linear basis where you try to take things from one point to another, but operate in a systemic manner. Sort of the way a bank clearinghouse does. You know, they have a bank clearinghouse in the middle of all the banks, and everybody sends someone down there and they swap everything around. Well, that had been done in transportation before. The Indian post office, the French post office, American Airlines had tried a system like that shortly after World War II. But the demand side and the supply side had really not, met at an appropriate level of maturation. By the early 70s, when I had gotten out of the service, it was very clear that this new society was coming in earnest.
After graduation, Fred joined the Marines and served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. Later in life, he credited the military for learning leadership skills that carried over to business. He also noted military procurement and delivery procedures very carefully. So what does all this have to do with a casino? Fred wasn't just a visionary. He was a bit of a gambler. The biggest gamble was coming soon to save his company. As Fred Smith was finishing college, it was a bustling time in Las Vegas in the late 60s and early 70s. Plane loads of people from across the country flew in for a nice gamble. Atlantic City wouldn't open casinos until 1978, and Sin City was the only place in the country you could lay a few bucks on the craps table or square off against the dealer in some blackjack. Vegas had a monopoly on vice. Some of the more popular casinos at the time included the Sahara, the Flamingo, Circus Circus, the Frontier, the Stardust, and of course, Caesar's Palace. Beyond dice, cards, and cocktails, visitors had plenty of entertainment to choose from in the 70s. For some sex appeal, you could head over to the Aladdin for a show entitled This is Burlesque, which billed itself as the only topless show on the Strip at the time. For some laughs, you could catch Don Rickles or Johnny Carson on stage over at the Sahara. Live music options included Kenny Rogers at the Golden Nugget and Tina Turner and Liberace playing the Hilton. Downtown at the Plaza, $60 got you quite a bit. That included a 2-night stay for two, a free show, a free prime rib dinner, free access to the pool, a free Strike It Rich Keno game, 2 free breakfasts, and 2 free cocktails at any bar or lounge. Vegas was a swirl of neon, cool vibes, and cash, and no resort fees. The scene was certainly a bit different in Vegas back then, and that included the management. As anyone who's seen the movie Casino knows, the mob was a big player in Las Vegas. Lured by a steady flow of cash, the mob could skim off millions of tax-free dollars. Casinos like the Stardust, Fremont, Hacienda, and the Marina were operated by members of organized crime. Anthony Curtis experienced Vegas in the 70s firsthand. Curtis worked for several years as a professional blackjack player before starting the Las Vegas Advisor newsletter and website. It's a complete guide to shows, hotels, and everything Vegas.
Yeah. Well, it's in 1973 I was in Vegas, but I was 16 years old and on vacation with my mom and dad. So, but we used to vacation a lot in Vegas, and I loved the casinos, and I used to go and watch and look. And then I came out here in '79, so I've got a fairly good idea of what it was like. It was old-time Vegas. It was, everything you hear about when people go, I miss the old days. I miss the days when the mob was in charge. And definitely the mob was in charge at that time. They had their fingers in a lot of the casino pies. But from my experience when I was here, they were still behind the scenes. It wasn't an overt presence, but they were here. The casinos were kind of splashier and fancier. People dressed up. You didn't see people walking around in tank tops and shorts. It was more of a glamorous time for sure. It was a real bargain time. That's when the buffets were $1 and $2 a piece. It was a lot of fun. The pools were nothing like they are now, but there were pools in the desert, and people would come out here in 115 degrees and hang out by those pools by day and go see the shows by night. So Vegas was a pretty cool place. And the games were good. The games were better than they are these days. The rules were better. Almost all the games were single deck. So the odds would have been better for Fred Smith at that time.
The mob influence didn't seem to deter visitors looking for a nice steak, a show, and plenty of action. After finishing his service in the Marines, Fred Smith worked on his new concept of an overnight shipping carrier. In 1971, he raised $80 million to put his plan into action. The company was based in Fred's hometown of Memphis and focused mostly on documents and small packages in those early days. On the first night of operations, 14 Federal Express jets took off with 186 packages. The company now ships 14 million packages a day with 670 aircraft at 650 airports worldwide. But those early years were a struggle, and the company lost $27 million in its first 2 years. As Roger Frock noted in his book, Changing How the World Does Business, while FedEx is now a household word, the company that invented overnight delivery was far from an overnight success. Fred quickly found that setting up his new vision for overnight air shipping came with plenty of hurdles, and spoke with the Academy of Achievement about those early struggles.
We run out of money, and we we didn't have all of the regulatory requirements we needed. My half-sisters were up in arms because it looked like we were going to lose some money. I mean, everything was going wrong except the fundamentals of the business were proving every single day that the idea was right. I mean, every single day the traffic was going up, and so eventually everything came right and worked out fine.
In 1973, the company barely had enough money to pay its debts. Airports were threatening to impound planes for non-payment of landing fees, and creditors threatened to bring the whole company to a halt. Apparently, as package traffic continued to rise, however, employees believed in the company's future. One pilot used his personal credit card to pay landing fees so he could take off. Another courier sold his watch to buy fuel for his delivery van. Couriers would often come in on the weekends just to wash and wax their vehicles. The company was running on fumes, but Fred continued to renegotiate financing to keep it afloat. Dr. Bob Collins teaches business management and entrepreneurship at Texas A&M University Commerce and spoke about Fred's innovation and his situation in those early years.
Fred Smith's idea was what I would call a game breaker type of idea. I think everybody knows what his idea was with FedEx. He was going to revolutionize the world of package delivery, and ultimately it turned out that he could also revolutionize the world of mail delivery as well. Now, let me say that it is true that at one time when he first started the company, he raised some money, I think around $85-90 million to get the company going. And he was dangerously close to running out of money. He was really in a hard time. And most of his investors were getting ready to pull away from him. But he was dangerously close to having shut down. He was able to, at the last minute, renegotiate a debt he had with a bank and get some better terms on it. So he was in the classic situation that many entrepreneurs find him in, that was scrambling for his life, literally scrambling for his life.
By mid-July of '73, FedEx was nearly bankrupt. Fuel prices surged after the Arab oil embargo, and Fred was desperate. It was a Friday, and the company had only $5,000 left in the bank. The company owed $24,000 on Monday to fuel suppliers. If FedEx didn't make that payment, its planes would be grounded, and the dream would probably be over. Out of options, Fred turned to something he'd learned while in Vietnam: blackjack. He literally had nothing to lose and later told Forbes magazine, quote, "I went out to Vegas with this high roller I knew. We went to the casino and he got me a line of credit. The odds of blackjack actually aren't that bad if you know how to bet. The problem is, most people get chicken and pull their money off the table exactly when they ought to be doubling down. I didn't have that problem." Blackjack is one of the most popular games in the casino. It seems so elegant and refined. It's pretty simple, really. Draw enough cards to get as close to 21 as possible without busting. A face card and an ace give you a perfect 21, blackjack. Sharp players who know the odds can cut the house edge significantly. With a little luck, players can earn a few dollars, unless your luck is a little more like Clark Griswold's in Vegas Vacation. Like many games of chance, blackjack originated in France in the middle of the 18th century. It was probably derived from a similar game where a player had to reach 31, which had been played since the 15th century. The coolness of blackjack may also have to do with the idea that players who can count cards can tip the odds in their favor. Card counting has been a popular theme for Hollywood in movies like Rain Man and 21, which is about a real-life card counting team from MIT. Here's the Las Vegas Advisor's Anthony Curtis on the popularity of blackjack and what makes it a great game.
The most popular casino games right now are certainly machines, slot machines, video poker machines. But blackjack, without question, is the king of table games. It always has been. A couple of reasons is it's fun and social. You know, it's an easy game to play. People have played it around their kitchen tables and such. The odds are very good. Most maybe most games might have a 0.5% to a 1% advantage for the house if you're a reasonably good player. So I think that combination of familiarity, socialness, and good odds is what makes blackjack the most popular table game.
While there isn't a record of which casino Fred Smith walked into that day in July of '73, we do know that he needed money badly. His strategy on how to bet that last $5,000 is also not exactly known. But it's easy to imagine the scene in that casino. Twinkling lights, bells and whistles from the slot machines. A haze of cigarette smoke fills the air. Maybe a lounge singer could be heard belting out a tune. And at one of those blackjack tables, the future of what was going to be one of America's great companies was on the line. Fred approached the table with his chips. There was much more on the line that night than $5,000. For most of us, it would have been nerve-wracking, a completely surreal night. Anthony Curtis offers some expert insight on what statistically might have been Fred's best play at the table and in similar betting situations.
What's interesting, what you really need to know how likely it is to turn 5,000 into 27,000 is how he played it. If you think back, if the listeners think back, there was a movie called Indecent Proposal. And that was Woody Harrelson and Demi Moore were trying to turn something like 50,000 into $1 million or something. Now, we did some studies on that. We did a story in the Las Vegas Advisor. We called it Indecent Expectations. And we got blackjack expert Peter Griffin to do some calculations on this. It turns out that mathematically, the best way to do it is to bet it all at once, something called bold play. So the proper way to have made that play would have been to take the whole $5,000, put it down one time. If you win, put down the $10,000. If you win, put down $7,000. That would get you to $27,000. If you lose, you're out. The reality is the more you play, the more you expose yourself to the house edge. So if you break that stake, that $5,000 into, say, $1,000 wagers or maybe 10 $500 wagers, you're diminishing your chances. That is if you are playing with a negative expectation. So if Fred Smith was playing a basic strategy, he was playing with a negative expectation, his best play would have been to put it all down at one play. If he was an expert player, if he was a card counter, if he knew what he was doing, then it would have been taken longer, but his better play would have been to grind it out.
Returning to work that Monday, Roger Frock feared the worst. However, he was shocked at the company's fortunes. In his book, he wrote, "On Monday morning, much to my surprise, the bank balance stood at nearly $32,000. I asked where the funds had come from. Fred responded, I knew we needed money for Monday, so I took a plane to Las Vegas and won $27,000. Frock was shocked and asked why he would gamble the company's last few $1,000s. Fred simply shrugged and said, what difference did it make? Without the funds for the fuel companies, we couldn't have flown anyway. Those bills were paid, and the company survived. Fred's bet on his own company paid off, and by 1976, FedEx turned its first profit of $3.6 million. Since those days of blackjack financing, FedEx has become a global logistics leader with more than 425,000 employees in 220 countries and territories. In 2017, FedEx produced more than $60 billion in revenue, with more than $3 billion in profits. Dr. Bob Collins discusses Fred Smith's impact on business and industry and how he can serve as an inspiration to others.
So as far as his impact on the world of entrepreneurship, I'm not sure how much impact he had on entrepreneurship in general, other than the fact that anytime you see somebody like that who's pretty high visibility do some things that are smart to do, then others can take some lessons from that. I'm sure there's probably some entrepreneurs who may have observed what he was doing and said, hey, you know, I've got some debt here, maybe I can restructure it. Now, Fred had run through all of his family and friends type funding, and he really was getting ready to shut down. So he renegotiated the debt and was able to go up against an established, in place, basically government operation, the U.S. Post Office, which just the thought of trying to go up against that from an entrepreneurial standpoint would be tough. But I guess the nice thing about the USPS is they were hamstrung by poor service. They were not innovative in what they were trying to do. They had a big labor union they were having to deal with, and so all of those things that keep you from being innovative or being taking some risk, they couldn't do. So he was going up against this giant with some great new ideas, and that's the Fred Smith story is a classic story of innovation taking over an existing marketplace, which was the package delivery marketplace. And so I think the rest is history. He utilized technology that nobody else was using. He developed technology. He developed ways to get packages to customers. He stole the market literally from the post office, to the point that at one time just a few years ago, the post office came to him and said, "Can you deliver packages for us?" And I think FedEx is doing most of the package delivery now for the U.S. Post Office. So it's just a great story on how you overcome hardships, how you don't quit, how you don't stop unless you absolutely have to. And then he revolutionized the whole package delivery business.
And it all started with a term paper back at Yale University. You may be wondering, what grade did he earn for that classroom assignment that led to FedEx? His professor is said to have written on the paper, "The concept is interesting and well-formed, but in order to earn better than a C, the idea must be feasible." In an interview with Forbes, Fred looked back on that time in the company's history and reflected on the role that his big blackjack gamble in Las Vegas played in saving FedEx. The myth says that money alone saved FedEx. The truth is, we owed so much damn money, $27,000, didn't make much of a difference on the balance sheet. But it lifted our confidence at a time that we needed it. No business school graduate would recommend gambling as a financial strategy, but sometimes it pays to be a little crazy early in your career. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening again this month. This was such a cool story, and Fred Smith's perseverance is really a great testament to ingenuity and hard work. If you like our show, again, please let others know. We so much appreciate all the shares and nice comments on social media. Simply telling a friend helps us out so much. And definitely, please leave a 5-star review or a nice comment on Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Google Play, wherever you access the podcast. Those reviews really help us out and spread the word. Remember, an easy link to the show is truegamblingstories.com, or simply visit pokernews.com as well. A huge thanks to Anthony Curtis from LasVegasAdvisor.com. Anthony's such an interesting guy, and he knows everything when it comes to Vegas. His website, LasVegasAdvisor.com, is a great site and newsletter for all things Vegas, including plenty of bargains on shows, hotels, everything else. Check it out if you're heading out to Sin City. He is also the owner of HuntingtonPress.com, which features some great Vegas and gambling books. The latest is called Vegas Golden Knights by author Joe Payne. It's a great book on how the NHL expansion team in Las Vegas made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, and it's got plenty of gambling info in there too. Check it out. Also, a huge thank you to Dr. Bob Collins on some insight on Fred Smith's role in the logistics industry. Dr. Collins is senior lecturer and executive in residence at Texas A&M University Commerce in the College of Business. The university offers a great MBA program for those of you guys out there looking for a graduate program. That includes a complete online program for students all across the U.S. and around the world. True Gambling Stories is written and hosted each month by me, Sean Chapin. Robert Moreno does an amazing job of editing the show, adding in the sound effects and all the music. Please visit us on Facebook at True Gambling Stories, and on Twitter you can find us at GamblingPod. You can also follow me on Twitter at Poker Traditions, where I post a lot of my written work. You can read more of my work at SeanChafin.com. We are always in need of story ideas. If you have an idea, please let us know. And lastly, for all your poker and gambling news, information, videos, podcasts, and my feature writing and reporting, please visit pokernews.com.